And we're rolling. Welcome to my warm and cozy wee setup. This is a fresh new type of video for me, and one that's to be a more personal one, and one where I choose to talk about a topic that's either on my mind or close to my heart. And for the opener, I thought I would choose to talk about something that there does need to be more of a conversation to be had about this locally, where I currently reside. And if that wasn't so obvious from the accent, that place would be Glasgow. And the topic is the creative space. Boy, we have some catching up to do up here. Now, in the past 2 weeks, I've attended 2 creative events, the first of which was in Glasgow. This was a general creatives meet organised by Drew and Kyle, who make up Creative Control, and that's creative with a 3. The location for this was in Park Lane Loft in Bridgeton. Now, when I saw the confirmation email come through to tell me, bring your camera gear and bring it to Bridgeton, I was like, there's no way these guys are being real. Like, I'm getting jacked. That's a heist, is basically what it is. Now, luckily, my camera is intact, and it actually wasn't a heist. To my surprise, it was actually a meetup. And I think the meetup was run quite successfully. It was really good to be in a room with other creatives, people in either the same industry as you or similar industries. There were lots of videographers and photographers. They kind of get rolled into one these days. There's a graphic designer and I think web designer as well. And I thought it was cool to hear where everyone is at within their creative journey, especially if you're in a similar industry. Like, you get to understand what the next few steps are that might not be as obvious to you, and you try to figure that out just now. And it was really cool that no one was gatekeeping, like, especially when it comes to things like pricing. People can be very secretive and closed about. And I think in the creative space, one of the challenges is, how do you price yourself appropriately? Often people undervaluing their own work, they're not understanding what the industry charges, and then as a result, they're charging way below what they could be charging, and that can lead to burnout because they feel like they're not getting valued enough. And then also devaluing the industry as a whole. Like, if you know that you can go to the other person over there is going to do similar work for like half the price, like, what's going to be the reason for you to go to the more expensive established person if you think there's not really too much in it? I think there's another element, which is the accountability. If you are a creative and you offer work for a client, you're accountable by the client because a message says, where's my content, bro? Or what's happening with the video? Or what's happening with this? So you know you kind of need to be on top of it. But when it comes to your own videos, like for example, with me and making a video for YouTube, longer form, who's keeping me accountable for that? That's like something, if you chat to other creatives about and you understand and you know what they're working on, you have like that sense of accountability there with that. And other than the value of meeting the other creatives in the room, there were also 2 presentations delivered. The first of which was delivered by Colette of Connect Digital. She runs a web design agency. She had a pretty solid presentation, highlighting the importance of having your own website, your own space on the internet. It is something that I built my own website and stuff, and I kind of just generally use it as an inquiry form for clients. But there was another important side to this that I perhaps wasn't really something that I was thinking about too much, which was positioning. How to position yourself appropriately to get the type of client that you want. Because you can say you're a freelance videographer, or you can pitch yourself as a video production team. Just in terms of how things are worded and how you pitch yourself, that can be the difference between getting the type of client that you want or having to take on a job that perhaps you wouldn't want to take on because they don't fit the right type of customer profile, and they perhaps may not be charging you what your market value is or should be. The second presentation was delivered by Ifro. Ifro is a photographer. She does do photography, and her segment was basically explaining and teaching us how to use natural light how to get the most out of natural light, as well as how to pose a client for different types of looks. So for example, if you're shooting someone in a corporate setting and you need to get a headshot, how would you pose them? Like, how would you make them stand and sit, and like face positioning and all that types of stuff? Because I've had those situations where it's not something I'm going to be doing too much of. It's not the type of work that I want to do. But there are times when I take photos of people and they ask me, like, they're standing square on to the camera up here closed, and they're like this, and then they're asking me, like, how do I pose, and like, what should I be doing? And I just feel like saying to them, like, listen, like, see that whole thing you got going on there, mate? just dropped that whole thing, like completely switched that up. So it's good to have a few pointers to take away from that as well. But there is a whole other side to this that I think needs to be spoken about, which is that we're in 2024, and this meetup that I'd attended, which was the second one that Creative Control have arranged, this was only the second ever meetup, I think, of general creatives as a whole, like in Glasgow. And I think to only have around 15 or 20 people in that room that I was in, especially when paid ads have been ran to promote the event, I think, like, what's going on here? Like, that's just not good enough for me. And it does highlight the complete lack of community around creatives as it stands at the moment. Now, that, by the way, that's not a knock on Creative Control. I'm not saying that their ads were and that they couldn't get people in the room. It's more a case of that's just always the way it's been in Glasgow. Like, the attitude towards something creative, it's not really something that the community generally promotes as much as it should do. Often you'll find people who do make it as a creative, they boost and they go to like Manchester or London. Now, even if I could compare Glasgow to Manchester or London, like London, perhaps you could say, yeah, maybe it's not a fair comparison. 600,000 people up here, about 9 million people down there. But Manchester is about 580,000 or so. Very comparable, similar numbers to Glasgow. And the creative scene is popping down there. And then even thinking about Manchester, back in 2021, I was fortunate enough to be the event photographer for Harley Davidson to shoot the launch of their new Sportster model. I think it was the first time they were launching doing the launch outside of the USA. And they chose Manchester for this. They got a bunch of influencers and whatever to come together. I don't think any of them were paid to come along. And then I was the photographer that they arranged to come down and do the shooting stuff for. And it get me thinking, like, this event that I've come to here, like, would I see anything like this up here? Sure, there would be events and stuff, but just the ease of getting people together, I think it was served as a perfect location for that. And then just looking around at how the way there's always, if you've ever been to Manchester, you've seen that there's always these developments, high rises, like in almost every corner, every area. It does show that it's a growing or developing city. So the main question is, why is it that we're lagging behind up here? Is it our water isn't all good enough? What can be done about it? Now, to first answer the why, of course I don't have the complete answer to that, and that's where I think the conversation needs to be had. But I think I can hazard a guess as to a couple of things just relating to that. There's little concepts that you may or may not be familiar with. If you're a local, you probably have heard of this term before, which is ready culture. So ready culture, ready being the word for like embarrassing, that's a ready, like that's an embarrassing thing, or that's embarrassing, was something that I think was quite prevalent back in my days of high school. If you were found out to be someone that was like making videos, now back then I wasn't doing anything creative or video or media related as it was, but just generally if you were someone that was making videos, or someone heard like a Scottish accent on TV, whether they were on like as a talk show host or whether they were on getting interviewed by the news, people would just have this embarrassment towards that. I was like so ingrained that it was so common among different people. I was just thinking, like, the Scottish accent thing, people like the Scottish accent around the world. It's commonly rated as one of like the most likeables and one of the most trusted for call centres. That's why like a lot of call centres are based up here. And I'm like, why is it that the general Scottish person doesn't like that? And I think as the years have gone on, that has slightly changed with TikTok and the TikTok generation. People are just generally more open to putting themselves out there online. I think that's been the big generational mindset change that I've seen anyway, from being someone that's sort of, would you call me a millennial? I think I come into the millennial category. To compared to like Gen Z, where there is less of that second-hand embarrassment when it comes to someone making videos. And the other aspect you could say is some have an inferiority complex, and I'm sorry to say it, but it is kind of true. I give the example of football here, because some are happy that, oh, they're just a wee team and they're happy to just qualified for stuff. We don't care about whether we win or not. And I'm just thinking, like, do you not have ambition? If you question more about why we're terrible that something would be done about making us a half decent team. I don't buy into the whole idea of that we only have 5 million people, we only have this. Because if it were correlated to how many people are in a country, then India and China would be the best football teams on the planet, and that Uruguay and Scotland would be of similar quality, and we know that's not the case. I think so much of it comes from mentality, attitudes, and just having conversations about things that need to be spoken about that just aren't spoken about. For example, like with the football thing, for me, it would be a case of if they addressed how grassroots football and the attitude towards that, rather than valuing the physicality of players like under 14s, under 10s, just to make sure they win the game. The whole goal of the under 18s and whatever should be to promote the best types of players that would make it at top international level, like technical players, not just physicality. But on that, I just want to get you thinking on something that perhaps doesn't get talked about enough. To go into a more positive note, we'll talk about the second event of the 2 that I had attended, which was a meetup for creatives, Muslim creatives, organised by the Muslim creatives. This was over in East London in Leighton, and this was basically just a coffee meet. There was also a presentation delivered. It was basically an exercise that we went through, delivered by Abdullah Ali, aka Productivity Athlete. It was basically a goal-setting exercise, having to ask ourselves the why of why we want to make it as a creative. What goals do we have as making it as a creative? Shifting the focus from just doing the thing as a hobby to more, I need to do this because I need to succeed and I need to hit this goal. That would trickle down into, okay, like what does your lifestyle look like having achieved that goal? What would it cost to have a lifestyle like that? And then what do you need to do, or what earns you money as a creative to have a lifestyle like that fulfills your goals? And then once you have like that target of like monetary value, of whether it's how much you need to earn per day or per week or per month, then you focus and think about the steps that you need to take. Once you have that clear goal in your vision, how does that day to day look like? And the most important thing related to this are your habits. And he talked about how habits, or removing bad habits, are probably the most important thing you can do, more important than introducing good habits. Because he was explaining that no matter what good habits you have, your bad habits will always drag you down if you don't address them. And his big takeaway from the overall session was that motivation is more important than discipline. Because once you are motivated, once you have a clear goal, you will make things work and make things happen. And discipline and habits on their own, you can start to lose track because you don't understand just like why you're doing the thing that you're doing. You don't have a deep understanding of that. I thought it was incredibly insightful to have attended such a niche event, because the overall general creatives event, I mean, there's tremendous value from that. But to have attended one that's even more niche as for a Muslim creative, I think there's a lot of nuances and differences within that. The key difference with a Muslim is how we perceive this world around us and why we're in this world. We believe that this life is a test, and that people are tested with different things, whether that's with money or health, wealth, relationships, character, how you are towards people, afflictions that you receive, trials, tribulations, like list and go on. And that your test is something that you have to figure out on your own, and that's specific to each person. And that we don't subscribe to the YOLO mantra. We don't believe that this is the only life that we'll live, and that actions in this world will have consequences in the next. And to be in a room where that is mutually understood by all the other attendees, it does allow us to be a bit more specific in like problem solving, or thinking about like what the next steps are, how to address certain things. So with that in mind, there are criteria and rulings that we have to consider in life in general, but also in our creative work. So something that I personally wanted to get out of the event was, there's a challenge that I'm facing at the moment, which is that I want to cut out music full stop when it comes to incorporating it into videos. The promo work, videos, music typically go hand in hand. So this was a bit of a challenge as to like how do I offer my services to clients. And the big thing that I got from speaking to two of the brothers who are in the same industry as me, offering social media content to businesses, they explained and showed me and demonstrated that you just need to make sure that you're delivering the client the results that they want. Because ultimately, they want the results. and typically that will be through the metrics of numbers and reach and impressions and all that. And then from there, it'll trickle down, obviously, people attending the shop, more sales, more cash in the till by the end of the week. And one of them showed me a very basically shot video of a shawarma getting made. It's a video that he done for a shawarma place. And he kept the original sounds in. It basically became an ASMR video. It was sounds of the spatula hitting the grill, the sound of the grill, like stuff sizzling and stuff. You can already picture and imagine those types of sounds. And this reached 1 million views. It's basically a viral video. I'm like, bro, I'm using music in some of these videos and they're not even reaching anywhere of these low numbers. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what audio I'm using. All that matters is like the end result to the client. And as long as I can promise and deliver the results, that's the thing that matters the most. So that was hugely inspiring to see that there's people already doing and they've already solved that issue and not having to incorporate music. So for me, attending both of those events, well worth it. Whatever the monetary cost of it was, I mean, the tickets, each of them were only around, I think, a tenner for each one. The London one involved a 5-hour train journey each way. But to me, it doesn't matter. Like, I got so much value out of it that I would happily do it again. And the big example or takeaway that I can give to you as to how valuable it was, think of the video that you're watching of me just now. Would I have got the motivation and energy to have made this video that you see in front of you? Maybe, but maybe not. Who knows? To have met other creatives and to know that there is a growing community of both local community as well as the Muslim creatives community, even if it is a little bit further away, it is certainly reassuring and inspiring. And my main message that I want to give from this video is that there's probably so much undiscovered talent out there, whether you are locally, whether you're on the same island as me, or whether you're dotted about in a different part of the world. If there is an event or something coming up where you get to speak to people in of a similar or the same industry as you, get up off your arse, get a ticket and go. Or reach out to somebody that's also producing content, even if they're a few steps ahead. The worst that they're going to say is no or patch you, but most likely people will happily know that they're inspiring someone in the same field as them. They'll give a pointer or two. You just have to make that first step. And for the ones local, I do hope there is an attitude shift. It won't be done by hoping and praying alone. It'll be by changing people's views and attitudes, and that might be through videos like this one. So with that, I bid you farewell. Salam, peace, Allah Hafiz.